Besides refractive surgeries like LASIK surgery, are there any other treatments for myopia?
There are treatments to slow progressive myopia, to slow the progression of myopia if it's identified that it's, higher, very high, so -5, -6, or even higher. And some of those include the use. A lot of them are still, research phase, so they're happening. But anyway, so atropine drops is one of them, and I think I already mentioned ophthalmology.
What do those drops do?
So again, this would be a question for the ophthalmologist among us. Yeah,
She
I
can
think
speak to that in a little bit. But so there are drops, and then what was the second one that you were going
there's
into?
ophthalmology, so that was the use of lens to flatten the distance between the cornea and the back of the eye. Um, I think we've talked about laser surgery already, and perhaps there might be other methods Dr. Young may be able to talk to. So these go to slowing down progression of the myopia, but not necessarily like removing myopia altogether.
Yeah. So orthokeratology is it's a hard contact lens, and kids sleep with it. They don't. So it's kind of a treatment by night. Um, I generally optometrists would prescribe that regimen, but that's what orthokeratology is. Atropine eye drops are used actually therapeutically, in ophthalmology for other conditions. It dilates the pupil, and the pupil is the black hole, if you will, that you see in the center of the eye. It's just basically an opening. And the iris, or the colored part of the eye, has these sphincters in it, and it just tightens those sphincters so that the pupil size gets larger in diameter. So it goes from smaller to large, and it actually fixates in place. So it's dilated, but it doesn't change shape depending on if you're in dark or light. It actually fixates it in a dilated position. But the other thing it does is it paralyzes something called the ciliary body, which helps to suspend the lens that I mentioned. That's a clear football shaped structure that sits literally right behind the colored part of the eye. And in so doing, to paralyze the lens doesn't change shape anymore. So there's something about that changing shape, especially for near activity, called a combination, that is associated with myopic progression or development of myopia. So if you suspend the lens in a young child, they can still see, but that lens isn't changing shape, especially if they're appreciating things at near. And it's thought if you reduce that amount of time that they're doing that with these drops, that may actually stave off, progressive myopia. So that's what atropine drops do. There's a lot of activity and research happening in that space right now, because we want to give as little atropine as possible in terms of concentration to children. We don't certainly want to give adult doses of it, if you will, because some of that drop is absorbed in the nose. We have highly vascular nasal mucosa, and some of the drop actually travels into the nose and can get into the body. So we want to limit the amount of concentration that we give for atropine. And there's a lot of research happening in that space right now.